and welcome to the CPA News Desk. My name is Paula Massman, CPA's Media Director. A new CPA economic analysis estimates that for each $1 billion of additional imports into the U.S. costs us, the nation, 4,552 jobs. On this basis, the rise of imports from 2009 to 2015 has meant the loss of over 3 million jobs. Here's a special report with more information on this astounding number.
The results are shown in this table. They indicate that for each 1 billion increase in imports, the economy loses 4,552 jobs. This is a very significant loss. As an illustration, since 2009, goods imports increased by 44%, or 693 billion, to total 2.27 trillion in 2015. That increase in imports translates to a loss of 3.15 million jobs, a large impact given that U.S. employment in November 2016 totaled 7.4 million people, or 5%. A large number of the employees who lost their jobs between 2009 and 2015 due to imports probably found work in alternative companies or industries. However, research has shown that if and when they get reemployed, those workers are often in lower paid, lower quality jobs.
Here with us today, we have a very special guest. His name is Jeff Ferry. He is CPA's Research Director, and he is here to tell us more information on this economic analysis. Jeff, thank you so much for being here. Now, let's cut right to the chase. How did you arrive to this number that every 1 billion increase in exports equals 4,552 jobs lost?
Paula, what we felt was that the political world and the American public still don't pay enough attention to the importance of net exports to the U.S. economy, and specifically to the enormous and growing volume of imports. So in order to measure the impact of that, what I did was I took a look at the total amount of imports we have in the USA, which was running around $3 trillion last year, and looked at how that impacts the domestic economy. And what it basically does is it substitutes for domestic production, because every $1 billion of autos, machinery, raw materials that gets imported into this country, if we could substitute U.S. production for that, that would have a positive impact on the U.S. economy. So we tried to estimate that exact impact in terms of jobs. And the way we did that was to look at the value of production in the U.S. that could be substituted and the average number of jobs that every dollar of imports accounted for. And as you said, the numbers tell us that using the most recent data we have for the last couple of years, every $1 billion of imports into the U.S. is substituting, on average, around 4,500 jobs. That's a lot of jobs.
So that's quite a lot of jobs. And in your report, you say that from 2009 to 2015, we've lost over 3 million jobs, right?
Right. I mean, there's different ways to look at this. Since 2009, our imports have gone up by something like $600 billion. You multiply that by the 4552 number, and you're talking about close to 3 million jobs that we would have had here today if we'd been able to hold our import level to the 2009 level. Another way to look at it is last year our trade deficit was $500 billion. If we could have replaced those $500 billion of net imports with domestic production and domestic jobs, that would have been worth well over 2 million new jobs in the United States. That's a massive number of jobs when you consider the employment situation here today. It's important to remember these are theoretical and statistical exercises. This can't be done tomorrow, but what the analysis shows is the enormous impact of the problem. Net imports, a trade deficit that is running at a level of $500 billion a year and has been running for 41 years, is an enormous drain on the U.S. economy.
Right.
So a lot of people look at these numbers. Okay, we've lost, this many jobs. I haven't lost my job yet. But how does this really affect the American worker? How does this affect the American company?
Yeah, there's an old joke that a recession is when your neighbor loses his job and a depression is when you lose your job. So naturally people ask, how does this affect me personally? And it doesn't. I mean, it's estimated that something like 20 to 40% of those people who've lost manufacturing jobs in the last 15 years have lost those jobs due to imports. So it's affected millions of people. I mean, we've lost 5 million manufacturing jobs since 2000. As many as 2 million of those 5 million are due specifically to imports from foreign nations. So imports are a massive negative factor for employment. But in addition to that, it affects every worker who's in a competitive industry, because what we've really seen in the last 15 years of globalization is we've opened up the world market to dozens of other countries. I mean, the best known ones are China and India, but there are some very small countries as well who've begun selling product into the United States. And the trade is a good thing. Buying low cost, highly competitive goods are a good thing if the markets are open and truly free and fair, but they're not. Many of these countries selling into our country have protected markets and are using trade practices which, on the letter of the law, are illegal. They violate WTO rules. The effect of that has been explosive growth in our trade deficit. The effect of that on American workers is they're now competing with workers in all those foreign countries who in many cases are paid 10% or 20%, a fraction of what they're making here. That puts a downward pressure on wages in many, many industries in the United States. That affects millions upon millions of workers. Now, we're not against competition and we're not against trade. We're against unfair trade and we're against unfair trading practices.
Right.
So what can be done in order to stop this from continuing on the path that it's on right now? I know that in last Congress, 2016, there was a House resolution that was passed. It's H.R. 175, and it was to prioritize balancing our trade deficit. What else can be done in order to stop us from continuing down this path?
Many things can be done. I'm very hopeful now that we have a new president and a new Congress that more will be done to address the trade issue, because by addressing the trade issue, we can deliver more jobs, more factories, more economic growth. And the things that can be done include a balanced trade resolution, which is before the Congress now with CPA support, which says Congress and the administration should make it a priority to eliminate our $500 billion trade deficit and move towards balanced trade, because we have a great industry in this country. We have a great agricultural community. There's no reason why our exports shouldn't be at least equal to our imports. And it hasn't been that way for 41 years. We've got to fix that urgently. That's the first thing. Second thing is we need to enforce all the existing trade agreements and rules and regulations that exist, but dozens of other countries violate those rules and regulations on a daily basis. They say their markets are open, but their markets are not open. The legislation, the rules, even the international tribunals exist to enforce those things. The U.S. government needs to be more aggressive about enforcement and obviously taking punitive action when other countries refuse to comply. In addition to that, we see widespread currency manipulation. We've got to take action against countries that have had a surplus for too many years to see their currency and our currency move in a direction which can move us towards balanced trade. Finally, I would mention corporate tax reform. As you know, the Congress is pulling together a program on tax reform. The CPA supports tax reform. We think it's crucial that tax reform include border-adjustable provisions so we encourage our exports and we discourage our imports. There are a lot of different ways to do that. There's a lot of discussions going on inside the Capitol and elsewhere right now about that. But something should be done.
Well, Jeff, that's about all the time that we have. Thank you so much for all of your insight. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time at the CPA News Desk.